Now, last week was obviously a very active and crazy week in the fantasy football world. And specifically at the running back position, a lot of these guys who were top options already, they found new homes. How is that going to shake up their dynasty value? Well, we're going to go through that today by going through the top 20 running back rankings in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And this is a new channel exclusively for Dynasty, so please go down there. Drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from this video today. So let's go ahead and dive into it. At number 1 and number 2 in this top tier, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. The two 2023 running backs that were fantastic, and a lot of people still argue Jahmyr Gibbs should be above Bijan Robinson. I can understand that argument. The dude is super explosive. He showed better in his 2023 season than Bijan did. Here's the rationale I think we could all agree with, though. With Arthur Smith out of the building, not trying to use the two running back system anymore, Bijan Robinson is on track to get at least 300 opportunities in 2024 fantasy football. That's going to happen. So his dynasty value being at the age that he's at is going to continue to be really, really high. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs obviously is a great running back as well. He's in the perfect offensive situation. He's not having to handle a full workload of carries, which, by the way, I think is better for him to have Dave Montgomery there because he doesn't have the size to handle a Derrick Henry type of workload, a Nick Chubb type of workload. He's best used to get 12 to 15 carries a game and 5 targets per game. That's where Jahmyr Gibbs shines. Give this guy the ball in space, get him out in a wheel route. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to make things happen. Jahmyr Gibbs, his dynasty value being this young on this great of an offense, with the offensive coordinator Ben Johnson coming back and the offensive line still intact, this guy's going to continue to be great for years to come. Breece Hall at 3 and Jonathan Taylor at 4. Breece Hall is in that number 1 tier for very good reason. This guy is still very, very young. Breece Hall is coming into his 3rd season in the NFL. Would you believe this? At 22 years old. He's 22 right now, he'll be 23. So this guy is very, very young. Now, obviously, he's got the way worse team and the way worse situation than both Jahmyr Gibbs and I would argue Bijan Robinson as well. But Breece Hall last year was phenomenal on that horrific situation. Now, maybe his quarterback is actually going to become the vice president. Who knows? I heard that Aaron Rodgers is still up in the air. Aaron Rodgers, if he's there for a season, the way I see Breece Hall's 2024 season breaking out, if Aaron Rodgers is there, either he gets less targets per game than he did in 2024 and his efficiency raises up, or he raises his efficiency and he still handles around the same amount of targets per game. Because Aaron Rodgers is in his 40s now and he's not going to be mobile. So either way, Breece Hall is more efficient and Breece Hall is just an excellent player. Tons of dynasty value. Jonathan Taylor, I still have him ranked over guys like Kyren Williams and Devon Achane. Jonathan Taylor is not 26 yet, and he's on a long-term deal with the Indianapolis Colts, and he's got a great offensive line and a great offensive coach. That's what matters. And the quarterback, if he hits, Anthony Richardson, is going to make him way more efficient. This is a correlation that can be followed with rushing quarterbacks, or at least guys who can move. Lamar Jackson, his running backs are always efficient. Jalen Hurts, his running backs are efficient. Kyler Murray, James Conner, 5 yards per carry last year. Running quarterbacks improve the running back's efficiency because the defense is on their heels. Jonathan Taylor, fully healthy, last year was very good. Expect him to be very good for the next 2 seasons at the very minimum. Kyren Williams at 5 and Christian McCaffrey at 6. So Kyren Williams is in a situation, 23 years old, great offensive coach, also a lot of weapons, right? This guy broke out and his dynasty value increased like crazy, just like Puka Nacua. There's nothing but positives right now on Kyren Williams' side. The only real concern that I have here is when Matt Stafford leaves, do they have a succession plan? Because he'll probably be done in the next 2 years. They don't need to worry about it right now. They don't. He was still good in 2023. So Kyren Williams is still going to be in a really good position, and he has tons of dynasty value right now. And then Christian McCaffrey, I made this argument when I ranked the top 20 wide receivers in Dynasty. Listen, Christian Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, Rachaad White, who are good dynasty running backs, but all we have is the potential that they ever reach Christian McCaffrey level production. Guys like Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey, you just take whatever they have left because you know it's going to be elite. So Christian McCaffrey, still a top 10 dynasty running back to me personally. James Cook at 7 and Achane at 8. Now James Cook at 7 is sitting here because he's in a situation with Buffalo with no more Ken Dorsey at the offensive coordinator position. So Ken Dorsey was part of I would argue, the main reason why he had a bad middle part of the season. As soon as they fired him and promoted Joe Brady to play caller, James Cook was getting about 20 touches per game. It's a big deal because he made some massive noise when it counted in the playoffs. Another year with Joe Brady at the coordinator position, with Josh Allen, obviously. James Cook is very efficient and he's very explosive, and he's going to be a very good dynasty back for years to come at the age that he's at. And Achane at 8 is in a position where I think that Achane is obviously got the age on his side. He's got the offensive efficiency on his side. The offense is perfectly run and he's perfectly placed in this offense. But the question will always be the same for me, which is that, look, this guy doesn't have the ideal size. Regardless of how you cut it, there's a reason he got injured on a large scale in 2023. Guy's not even 195 pounds. So he's going to be limited from a volume perspective his whole career. But as long as he's young and in this Miami offense, he'll be efficient for the next 3 years at least. So Achane is going to continue to give you massive games in fantasy, which is going to boost up his dynasty value because of those massive games and the offensive situation that he's on. Travis Etienne at 9 and Kenneth Walker at 10. Travis Etienne dropped, and I've been on this one really for the most part of the offseason. If you watch my first original running back rankings in Dynasty, you heard me discuss a little bit how I was a little worried about him. From the perspective of, look, this guy's not 26 yet, but he's getting there. He's 25, and he's coming off his most productive season, but are we sure that this guy's an ascending asset, or is he descending at this point? And I think it's actually clear now that he's descending. Let me tell you why. Travis Etienne last season was not great statistically. Like, he did really well, and he was the number 3 running back in half PPR, but this guy averaged 3.8 yards per carry. And Travis Etienne really had a bad back half of the season. Travis Etienne, the problem with him is that he's probably best served as a 200 to 225 carry a year type of guy, and Jaguars know it. Doug Peterson recently came out and said, yeah, we want to lighten his workload a little bit this year. So he knows it too. So he's going to be capped on volume, and I think he's still a good option, obviously. He's in the top 10 for a reason, but I don't think he's an ascending asset. I actually, if I had him in Dynasty, I'd be looking to sell him today. Kenneth Walker at 10, I love the talent. I love the player. He's capped at upside because of the fact that they have Zach Charbonnet. You know Zach Charbonnet is going to be more involved this year. Now, I like the player that Kenneth Walker is better than Zach Charbonnet. I think he'll still be the lead back by touches, but Zach Charbonnet will be involved, and that's going to cap his value. And it already is capping his dynasty value. So Seattle hasn't made a quarterback move yet. They don't have an offensive-friendly coach. So Kenneth Walker, I don't think that there's been a ton of movement for him in a positive direction. So he's going to sit here at 10 just based on the upside that he promises from a talent perspective. Rachaad White at 11 and Isaiah Pacheco at 12. Rachaad White is going to rise up here because, look, the news out of Tampa Bay is they love this guy. The GM recently said, we think we've got an elite running back. And I got to tell you, from a numbers perspective, I still don't get it. I've been kind of known as a Rachaad White hater on my main channel, Football Fanalysts Network. I don't hate him. I don't. I just see the reality of his efficiency. 3.6 yards per carry both seasons in the NFL. And this year he had over 350, almost 350 total opportunities. So I don't get the the massive hype, but I do understand that obviously based on volume and based on age, this guy's a good dynasty running back. I want to believe in him, which is why I've moved him up here because of what the team is saying, and they've got their offense intact still. So I like Rachaad White for dynasty. And then Isaiah Pacheco at 12 is just in a situation where he's on the best offense in football. Maybe not from a fantasy perspective, but you just know what you're going to get with the Chiefs. They're going to go run heavy, and their running back's going to be efficient because their quarterback is so freaking good. Isaiah Pacheco is going to continue to average 4.5 and above yards per carry. Isaiah Pacheco's in a good position here. He's their lead back. They haven't made a move. They probably, if anything, maybe draft a running back as a backup. Pacheco's going to continue to get targets out of the backfield as well. He had 49 total targets last year. Expect more of the same. He's just a steady option, not a huge home run hitter, but you can expect just steadiness from Isaiah Pacheco. Josh Jacobs at 13 and Saquon Barkley at 14. Our two big free agent signings right here found arguably the perfect homes for both of them. Josh Jacobs to Green Bay is probably one of my favorite moves of the offseason. Christian Wilkins on the defensive side of the ball to Las Vegas, that's my favorite. I think Josh Jacobs to Green Bay is my second favorite. Green Bay's offense, their trajectory, if they were a stock, I'd be buying them like crazy. And in fantasy football terms, in Dynasty, I've been buying Green Bay Packers players as much as I can. Jaden Reed, I want him. Jordan Love, I want him because that passing attack is going to be lethal this year. Their offensive line is still largely intact aside from David Bakhtiari. Their offensive line is going to be still, once again, very good. And that's going to help their running back, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, I think if everything goes right this year and he stays healthy for a full season, we could be looking at a top 5 finish. Now, he's still 26 years old, so we don't have a ton of time left as far as history would show us. But for the time being, enjoy the ride. I think this is a fantastic landing spot for Josh Jacobs. And I think very similarly about Saquon. Goes to a great offensive line. They invest heavy in the trenches in Philly. And yes, he's 27, but this guy is still so talented and he didn't slow down. He was everything for the Giants last year. So he's coming into a situation now in Philly where they've got the quarterback who's also a rushing quarterback. That's going to alone improve his efficiency number. He's going to average 4.5 yards per carry this year. Because additionally, with the running quarterback, the great offensive line is going to help. And the weapons they have in the pass game is going to help. Saquon Barkley is going to have so much pressure taken off him this year that I think that he is immediately a top option in fantasy football this year. And his dynasty value is still very, very high. Yes, he's 27, but I'll take a couple more elite seasons from Saquon because I think that's what we're going to get. David Montgomery at 15 and Tyjae Spears at 16. So David Montgomery is your steady Eddie, right? Like you're not expecting huge games from David Montgomery all the time. He can do it, but you're not going to get that all the time because he's sharing the backfield with a better running back. Jahmyr Gibbs is the better player. Now, where David Montgomery is going to continue to shine, he's still under contract with Detroit. So they're not getting rid of him. He's a key piece of the offense. Offensive line's elite, offensive coordinator's elite, and just a completely balanced offense that prefers to pound the rock. And David Montgomery is going to continue to be the guy who pounds the rock for them. David Montgomery is going to continue to get 15 carries per game and probably lead the backfield in carries, but of course, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take the load in the target category. David Montgomery is going to continue to get 10 touchdowns a year on the ground because he's their goal line back. David Montgomery, ride the wave, man, because he's a good dynasty asset right now. And Tyjae Spears is 16. Yes, they got Tony Pollard, and yeah, I probably think that Tony Pollard may be the guy who gets the most amount of opportunities this year, but Tyjae Spears, there's a good chance that Tennessee has some good running backs this year. Like, they've got a 2 running back system now, clearly, and they're they've got an offensive leaning head coach. So there's good things here in Tennessee. And Tyjae Spears was one of the most, if not the most efficient third down player last year. And coming into the season at a young age, there's a lot of upside here with Tyjae Spears. Hard to rank him exactly right now because there's a lot of things that can happen. But Tyjae Spears, I've got my eye on him in a very good way. DeAndre Swift at 17 and Alvin Kamara at 18. So DeAndre Swift goes to Chicago. It's kind of the, since there's so many massive running back moves this offseason, DeAndre Swift went a little bit under the radar, and he was like one of the first players to sign. 3 years with Chicago, and you know, I like the talent, obviously, but DeAndre Swift's fantasy career has been very underwhelming. And I don't think that going to Chicago is an upgrade over the Philadelphia Eagles. And if he couldn't do fantastic in Philadelphia, I would say the chances of him doing great in Chicago and even better are very, very slim. Now, I'll acknowledge that Caleb Williams is going to probably make it better because he's going to be a better thrower than Justin Fields immediately. But we're not talking about like some elite offensive operation here. DeAndre Swift is also known to not really handle the load. He's going to definitely have to split carries at some point, or they'll probably get him injured if they don't want to do that. So, yeah, he's still young enough. I would personally try to sell this guy. And Alvin Kamara at 18 is just in a situation where it's like, it looks like he's going to be in New Orleans, and based on his production last year, I'd rather have him over guys like Tony Pollard and guys like Joe Mixon who signed with it, who's got traded to the Houston Texans. Kamara is interesting. I don't mind holding on to him right now. But of course, you want to start trying to move off of him because he is approaching 30. Ramondre Stevenson at 19 and Najee Harris rounding it out at 20. So Najee Harris and Ramondre are both similar playing styles and both have the capability of being the featured guy. And Ramondre Stevenson, the word I've heard all offseason is that he wants to be the featured guy. So they signed Antonio Gibson, 3 years, $11 million, probably be the backup. Let's see if they honor that request and he is the featured back. And additionally, I like the fact that I don't think there's a way their offense can get worse. They moved off of Mac Jones, so they're going to go quarterback in this draft. And they've got Gerard Mayo now as the head coach. So let's see what they do offensively. I like Ramondre, but the time is ticking because he is getting to the middle age where you do want to start thinking about selling a running back. And then Najee Harris also approaching that age where you'd prefer to sell him. I like Najee because he's an Iron Man, and you know what you're going to get relatively, which is basically mediocre but still playable. And I honestly do think that it will be a better year because of Arthur Smith. I do think that it is a very good signing for Najee Harris specifically because of the fact that Arthur Smith likes a two running back system. Their offensive line is improving, and I think he'll find a way to get the most out of both of these players. As always, let me know what you think of these rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for 2024 Dynasty Fantasy Football.